Austin, how do you read this number? Because we all know there are many, many open jobs out there. Why aren't people going to work?
Yeah, I would be a little careful because most of the stories that you're hearing are about restaurants. But if you look at the jobs data, leisure and hospitality was actually the one bright spot, adding more than 100% of the net jobs for the entire economy, almost 1/3 just in that one sector. I think what we're seeing is a massive childcare crisis, and I really think we need to address that. So women had a net job loss. They actually did not add any jobs. There was a loss of jobs for women. And while schools remain closed and until we get daycare going, I think employers across the country, especially who have traditionally hired women, are going to be facing pretty significant labor shortages. So I think you partly got that. And then you've also got shortages of all kinds of stuff, whether it's steel or lumber or spare parts. A whole bunch of things are in short supply because we're kind of coming out of this pandemic. So let's hope
Austin,
that this is a one-month blip.
One of the reasons we're having shortages is because when you talk to all different types of businesses along the supply chain, they can't find drivers, they can't find people to work in factories.
Well, I don't know. Lumber, steel, computer chips, those are not, the prices of those things are not going up. Gasoline because of labor shortages. I think you're seeing a lot of short supply because of the supply chain mix-up when you've been boarded up for the winter and then you take the boards off. There's spiders in the corner. You got to kind of sweep up, and you're seeing a lot of that. On the labor side, unless we address this issue of what we're going to do with kids that are age 10 and below, I don't see how we're going to get out of this problem.
Doug, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's basically on the mark. There are two numbers I think tell this story. The first number is the very, very large decline in people working part-time for economic reasons. That tells you there's demand out there. I mean, there's been a ton of stimulus. There's money to be spent. There are jobs openings all across the economy. So we don't have a demand problem at all. If you look at the labor force participation rate, it ticked up to 61.7. That gets us back to where we were in August in the pandemic. We're nowhere close to the 63.4 that was the high before the coronavirus arrived. That's the constraint on the economy, getting people back to work. And there are myriad factors there. Austin's right, I think, about daycare and schools. And there's some people who are just flat out still afraid of the virus and unwilling to go back to work. And we do have the $300 federal bonus on top of the UI, which is just too rich for some parts of the economy. And so we're going to have to deal with the supply side. That's what's holding us back.
Austin, do we need to revisit the kind of government benefits we're offering? When Douglas mentions part-time unemployment going down, it makes me think, should we be offering a phase-in approach in terms of unemployment benefits? Right now, it's all or nothing. You either get full unemployment benefits, but if you want to go back to work to a part-time job, you'll lose all of those benefits completely. And the current setup is you don't have to go out and look for work while you're receiving those benefits. That was an accommodation made during the height of COVID when we didn't want people going out. But now things are much safer.
Right.
Well, that's true in some states. I did favor that kind of phasing down the UI benefit approach and phasing it up as you're describing it. The thing is, the good news, if you think that's what the barrier is, the supplement to UI is temporary and is going away in a couple of months. So I think this issue about kids in schools and daycares, to me, is a paramount issue. If the UI were the main cause, I don't think you should see as strong an employment number in leisure and hospitality and in lower income occupations as you saw in this job number. But this is a number that's okay. In normal times, 266,000 would be a fine number, but we need it to be way bigger. And we need to have that sustained.
But then to that very point, Austin, the White House needs and America needs a lot of the things in the infrastructure plan to go through. We need improved child care. I mean, go through the list. We need that. There's a $4 trillion price tag on it. And those are all long-term big changes that will help us going forward. We did, however, passed $2 trillion just 2 months ago in emergency funding. Does it worry you that we spent that much, kind of flooded the system with money that does just temporarily keep people home, and that will fatigue those who say, we just spent $2 trillion, I don't want to spend another $4 trillion. And the 4 is what we really need.
Well, yes, I'm concerned about that as politics. The thing about the $2 trillion, we haven't gotten hardly any of the $2 trillion actually out the door yet. So let's see whether the money that's going to stop the spread of the virus, there's money in that Relief Act that goes to address daycares and try to fix some of these labor supply problems.
Right.
Douglas, what do you think?
I don't think it's the number so much as where we're targeting the money. We don't have a shortage of ability for households to spend. If you look at the data, there's tons of cash out there on balance sheets that people can go out and spend when the conditions are right. We do have to continue to fight the virus. That's the core mission, and must be aware of the mutations and things like that. And we have to focus on these supply issues. And certainly the daycares and schools have to be at the top of that list. And money spent there, not the amount, but where you spend it is the most important thing.
Peter, does this help or hurt President Biden's case that he's making to pass this next $4 trillion?
Well, I think the White House would say this is all the more reason why you need to pass that $4 trillion in additional spending. You're talking about issues you just heard from Austin there about child care. Obviously, there's a frustration among Republicans that this sort of definition of infrastructure is being broadened out here to include elder care and child care and other topics of that kind. But to Austin's point, that's exactly what the White House insisting needs to be done here. And we're also getting some insight from within the White House right now. You remember not too long ago, before the nearly $2 trillion went out for the rescue plan, there was criticism from some circles, including among some Democrats, Larry Summers among them, saying that nearly $2 trillion was way too much money. The White House, I think, would tell you that obviously that's not the case, that money is needed. But as you note, Stephanie, it's the money going forward, the sort of fundamentals for a lot of these families where, in particular, women are looking to get back to work and require that help at home, that child care, that I think the White House will really make the case today. The president will be meeting with his jobs cabinet today. Again, we hear him at 11:30 as well.
Austin, does this help the argument to raise the federal minimum wage? Right now, someone who was making $32,000 last year is getting, and I realize it's short term, more money on unemployment. Does this help the argument if we raise the federal minimum wage to $15 or higher? A, that's what people need to survive, and B, that's what would get them back to work.
I would say it very much depends who you're talking to. If you talk to Democrats, I'm sure that they will say yes. And if you talk to Republicans, they will say no. If you raise the minimum wage, you'll slow down employment growth even further. So I don't think that the minimum wage is going to be the central point in the argument about this one.
Doug, you're saying no. I mean, right now, if you talk to employers, they're raising wages on their own to get workers to come in. So is it happening naturally?
I mean, that's the right way to raise wages. You sort of get a vibrant labor market. That's what we saw prior to the pandemic. Wages were rising, especially at the low end of the skill spectrum. That we have to go back to that. I think the $300 federal bonus is a policy error, and you don't fix a policy error by committing a second one. So we need to deal with the things that are getting in the way of the labor supply. And, this is a mixed bag for the White House. I mean, there's some things that really they believe will help, especially female labor force participation, paid leaves, child care, things like that. But there's some things that have nothing to do with labor force participation, elder care. And there's some things that go the other direction, which is the child credit, which is not contingent on work, and the increased health premium tax credits, which aren't contingent on work. So this isn't like a slam dunk that the things they're proposing are going to solve the problem.
Austin, even though it's just short term and come September, that expanded unemployment benefit runs out, in the immediate, what do? There are businesses all over the country that can't hire.
Well, I think, look, in the immediate, you wait to see what happens next month, because you never want to conclude anything from 1 month's numbers. The previous month was a blockbuster big number. This one is a disappointing but positive number. If next month we're back to a blockbuster number, then all of this is going to be forgotten. Let's say this continues. I think in the short run, you've got to start in the states where they're not requiring people that are on unemployment insurance to look for new jobs. I think they'll probably, you'll see widespread putting that requirement back in. I think on childcare, you'll see a huge effort to try to get the money that we already passed out the door to get that re-stood up. And I think you'll see a heavy focus from the White House trying to get more people vaccinated, because you also have this component that people who are afraid to take jobs where they're going to be back face to face until we've got the spread of the virus down to close enough to zero.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.